Hello, welcome to the 2023 broadcast year here on Sparks 1524. I'm Nathaniel Miller. Welcome to a new year of programming, but one in which I have a couple of short notes before we get on with this episode of The Writer's Craft. I am in the process of editing book number 4, Lionfish, which is the fourth adventure of The Accidental Detective, as I point to the wrong way. One of these days you'll think I'll get used to pointing to the right side of my own wall. But Lionfish will come out April 20th of this year, so like I said, I'm hip deep in the editing process, which means that my time is pretty limited. Normally, I prefer to get a video and a column on my blog, sparks1524.com, out weekly, but due to the workload, I'm going to be dropping to bi-weekly for the foreseeable future. Now, of course, if I have the time or something spectacular happens, I'll get a column and a video out, but for the foreseeable future, expect 2 a month at the minimum. Now, that little bit of admin out of the way, let's launch into this episode of The Writer's Craft. And this week, we are going to be dealing with the winning formula. We often, as writers ourselves and the audience members around us, our fellow citizens, will criticize a book, a play, a movie as too formulaic, and then put it away, never watch it again, read it again, etc. I started thinking about this over Christmas and New Year's because when I was talking to Jerry, my editor, it kind of hit me that all writing is formulaic in the first place. The basic formula of any story is your introduction, your rising action, your complication, climax, and denouement or resolution. That's a formula. Every character arc that any of us write, print, stage, or screen, is a formula. The character starts at point A physically and emotionally, mentally, goes through a journey in which they have to encounter obstacles, trials, and tribulations, as well as triumphs, overcome, adapt, assimilate, grow until they hit point B at the end of the story. That's also a formula. So, why do we criticize lackluster writing, print, stage, or screen, as too formulaic? As I was thinking about this, it occurred to me that the problem with something becoming quote unquote, air quotes, too formulaic means that the writer is not showing us, the audience, anything new anymore. Like I said a minute ago, human storytellers have been using the same formula for telling human stories since human storytellers started telling human stories thousands of years ago. But that formula isn't a bad thing. Otherwise, it would have been discarded. So what I think too formulaic means is that formula is not being used by the writer to demonstrate anything new. The characters are stagnant. They just become frozen in time. They react exactly the same way every time with no nuance, no adjustment for growth. Even though we may not have the most exciting lives, we're still different people now, here in January 2023, than all of us were in January 2022 or January 2021. That means that even though we're going to react in character, we're still who we are at core. As I talked about last year in another column dealing with characterization, how we express ourselves changes even in subtle little tiny ways. Excuse me. Our characters have to do the same thing. A couple of good examples on television to use here are Pretty Little Liars and Prison Break. Not because the concept of those shows was lackluster. Actually, both shows had brilliant concepts. And not because the casting of the shows was lackluster. Both shows, especially in my opinion, Prison Break, had outstanding casts. And not because the first 2 years of both those shows were boring. Actually, the first 2 years of those shows were quite well received. It's what happened in year 3, 4, etc. And the reason I want to use those is because they both had very limited premises. If you're not familiar, Pretty Little Liars is based off a novel, and it's a story of a high school clique that, they graduate high school and move on, but then the leader of the clique goes missing, and all the members of the clique start getting threatening notes from somebody named A, just the letter A. They have to unravel the mystery of who A is. And yes, by the name Pretty Little Liars, you can know it deals with the repercussions of all the teen drama that we all lived in high school. But that's still a limited premise. Now, you solve the mystery of A at the end of year 1. That's great. A lot of growth, a lot of drama, a lot of excitement, a lot of good things to keep the audience interested. Move into season 2, and it's the same thing. Somebody's threatening them again. That's not a bad idea yet, because it's the same premise, but these characters have already been through it once. They're going to hit the same threat, but now they're older, they're more mature, they've got wisdom and experience, they've learned how to work together or learned who not to work with. So you've got a viable set of characters and arcs for season 2. Season 3, the same characters fight the exact same threat. Now there's nothing new. You kind of played it out. Even if the cast is amazing and does everything they can to elevate the material, it's played out. Prison Break, another great example, because the concept, especially for doing a limited 1 or 2 year run, is ingenious. A brother intentionally goes to prison to find his brother and break him out. The family drama, the wacky idea of somebody trying to deliberately get into prison, right there is amazing. Brothers find each other, go through all their circumlocutions of emotional growth and arcs, and break out. It's a hell of an adventure. Season 2, they go into prison deliberately together to get somebody else out. So it's the same concept as the Pretty Little Liars. Same characters doing the same thing, but with all the past experience of having worked together, come through all their trials together, all their conflicts to merge into a team and now go do this. That doesn't mean the characters are bad, but to have a season 3, 4, and 5 of Prison Break, okay, they're breaking back into prison to break somebody out. They're breaking back into prison to break somebody out. The very concept has become formulaic because it's not showing you anything new. Too formulaic simply means that we as writers are not showing our readers anything new in our characters or their world. It is a pitfall that every single one of us, every one of us faces. Like I said, I'm writing book 4 of the Accidental Detective series. Now, I've planned through book 6. However, when book 6 ends, the series does not end. Oh, I have plenty more adventures for Isaac Shepard and his partner, Abraham Gray. Plenty more. But I've been writing the Accidental Detective since 2017. That's 5 years. By the time book 6 comes out, it will be 7, maybe 8 years. I'm going to need to take a break. Even though I got the adventures in my head, I need to take a break and walk away and let that field, if you use a farming analogy, let that field lie fallow. So new ideas, new attitudes, new ways of looking at the nuances of who these guys are can percolate. That's one way to avoid being too formulaic. Take a break from those characters. Another way to avoid the pitfall of being too formulaic, of falling in the trap of being stagnant and just running something that was successful over and over and over ad nauseum, is to be open to constructive criticism, especially from your coach or your editor. You need to find an editor who will be a coach like in the NFL or the NBA, someone who will not care what you feel, but will push you to put out the best product. Now, not caring what you feel and being a jerk are completely different things. I do not believe in being a jerk. But I've been an editor. I have been a coach. I have pushed, when I was in the Navy, I pushed my sailors, both when I was an instructor and just as an editor when I was a chief petty officer and the production and operations manager. Both roles of which required me to be an editor. I pushed them for really good stuff. I pushed hard, but I wasn't a jerk. I would tell the sailors, this is right. Don't touch this. You're on the right track here, but this is weak. This is what we need to work on. This is how it's weak. But you notice I said they're already on the right track. That's a coach. A coach doesn't tell you you suck. A coach tells you you're in the right end of the field, but your catch sucked. We got to work on the catch. They bring out what's good and what's bad, but you've got to be open to hearing that, and it's not easy. It's not easy for any of us. None of us likes being criticized. It's a skill we have to learn. And finally, the more fun aspect or suggestion I'd have for avoiding being too formulaic is to never stop reading and watching stories. Authors, actors, screenwriters, producers, directors that you find amazing, that turn you on, that just excite your imagination. Study their work. Study what they do. Even if they're in a completely different genre than you, they're still storytellers. They can still help you learn by studying their work. Well, again, welcome to the 2023 broadcast year here on Sparks 1524. I hope you had a great holiday season. I certainly did. Christmas Day here in Florida was about as cold as it normally would be back in Washington State when I used to live there, but we had an unusually cold Christmas. So, until then, until our next time here on Sparks 1524, don't stop writing, don't stop experimenting, but also be aware that the pitfall of becoming too formulaic, it's something we all face. Not one writer in the world is immune to it. It's a challenge we all have, so don't be afraid to reach out to writers you trust for help. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you think. Or if you want to check out my written blog on my written column on my blog, sparks1524.com, it is linked below. And on the written side, I discuss two versions of A Christmas Carol, one of which flopped and one of which flourished, and how being too formulaic flopped the first one. If you enjoyed this video, I'm grateful for your time. And if you didn't enjoy it, I'm really grateful for your time. Please feel free to share it. Also, hit that little like button if you don't mind down below. That does help in the algorithm. So if I'm somebody you're searching for, that it makes it easier to find me. I'd also ask you to hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with my ongoing programming. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. And until we do meet again, always remember, go and do some great things.